So, hello and hello back again. As promised, we will now switch to a short session that we used to call speed dating. That's something we invented some workshops ago to have an opportunity in between larger sessions to introduce short, quick ideas to let people introduce something that is shortly presented and then shortly discussed. And this time, the speed dating is, let's say, our own topic. We've been working from the start, and I need to share my screen. A second. We've been working it's perfectly in line of what we said, just discussed a minute ago on the paradigmatic issues, which is the basic idea that we followed from the beginning is that one of the main reasons of populism, and that's the time when we started, end of 2016, after the election of Trump, we started to explore this project. The basic idea was to say, if there's populism, it has to do very probably with the fall of a paradigm which has been dominant for a couple of decades. It's what we call neoliberal, market liberal, fundamental market fundamentalism, like some in the US and UK call it. It has started in the 80s with Reagan and Reagan and Thatcher. In Germany, there has been, in a different way, also a turn towards these more market liberal supply side policies and so on. And that has dominated, in a way, economic thinking, economic policy making for a couple of decades, 3 to 4 decades. And it's interesting to see, it doesn't mean that this paradigm is applied every day, and it doesn't mean at all that what the fundamentalists, market fundamentalists, think has been applied one by one, but it has been the guiding principle for a long time. It has been something which has driven economic policy making, narratives, what media are saying, and what is. And that's very important to understand. And we've done a lot of studies on how important these paradigms are guiding policy making at different levels. I talked about media. It's about the administrations where people follow what the paradigm is. They don't really reflect at each decision on the fundamentals of is it right or wrong. There are some guiding lines that follow. And we have seen that in Germany. We've seen that internationally. It's talking about the Washington Consensus, about the time. Yesterday we had some discussions about the origin. We have another discussion on the euro. And that at the time when people thought about how to design the euro, it was the high time of market liberalism. And so it very much define how they did this. In the end, they didn't forecast any or prepare the eurozone to something like a big financial crisis, because financial markets were considered to be efficient. So that seems to be a very important thing. These paradigms, and paradigms are always driven, and we have mentioned that 10 minutes ago in the former discussion. It's not only about narratives. It's not only about narratives. It's about fundamental issues. It's about fundamental things. It's real. It's not just about talking. But narratives are very important. I remember a very inspiring presentation that Anatoly Kaletsky, who was there yesterday too, has done 1 or 2 years ago at one of our workshops, exploring how the market liberals transformed a lot of their thinking into very simple words. And that was not easy, because the neoclassical or monetarist theory and the thinking is not, by evidence, is not simple. It had to be translated into some very simple words, like cut taxes, like reduce the influence of state, and so on. There were some buzzwords in this very clearly. What Anatol did at the time was exploring the logic between the complicated economic theory and wordings. What we started to do, and we want to put a focus on this for the next couple of months, uh, the importance of narratives and paradigms in this global understanding. So we started to do some work, and that's something we want to share. It's very early, it's very rough work, it's something very simple in the end, where we try to understand the role of narratives in Germany. And just to start, we just started to check what are the big words which have driven economic thinking and market liberal thinking in Germany in the last couple of decades, and especially at the time of the Agenda 2010 is for sure, but also in the time before, and then check how these words have developed. Um, so that's what we would like to present in the next couple of minutes. And Anne, you are online, may say just some words on the technical things, what we did. We were very much inspired by the work of Robert Schiller, who has published that book on narratives last year, and was used as one tool, as a very simple tool, Google Books Ngram viewer. And on narratives, just to quote him, he has said, as with any kind of historical reconstruction, we cannot go back in time with a sound recorder to capture the conversations that created and spread narratives. However, we can now capture the contemporary narrative through tools such as Ngram. So that's what we did, and Anna may say some words on the technical side. Please, Anna.
Yes, I would like to start by pointing out that we are still missing the theory behind all of this. So far, our analysis is basically based on the intuition that the frequency with which certain words or concepts are used in society is in some way related to the prevailing paradigm. We used as Thomas mentioned, the Google Books Ngram view. It was developed by Jean-Baptiste Michel and a number of other scientists to look at how certain words that in our opinion represent the formerly dominant free market paradigm in Germany are used in German books over time. And we looked at the period from 1945 to 2019. But of course, the later period will be more interesting. The Ngram view is based on the corpus of books that were scanned by Google Books, and this corpus is estimated to contain 4% of all books ever published. But unfortunately, we can't say what percentage of all German books it includes. So, but because we are only looking at the German part of this corpus. And what we'll see in the graphs in a moment is the number of appearances of a specific word, or sometimes a sequence of words in a given year in the German corpus, and divided by the total number of words or sequences in the German corpus in this year. This is to account for the increase in the number of books over time.
Thank you. I have two. How can I? Okay, simply. So we started to explore, and that's what we just wanted to share because we were very struck by the results and still early work, as we say. So we're very happy to get any input, any reflection on that, maybe caveats that were missing. So we took the typical words which represented the market liberal thinking. It's in German Eigenverantwortung, Eigenvorsorge, so self-responsibility or personal provision, or high performer, Leistungsträger, which was something which is very core, has been very core in the debates at these times. And what we discovered is striking, is we put the line on in 2007, which is the year before the financial crisis, or when the financial crisis started and the financial crisis got broke out and was apparent to the broader public in 2008. it is striking. We have this year this height of these words, the top levels of the words Eigenverantwortung, Leistungsträger in 2007, 2008. It's the profile in detail is maybe sometimes somewhat different, but it seems as if there's something that happened in 2007 or 2008. In other words, and just going through them, Fehlanreize, which has been an argument in economic thinking that a lot of social measures in the German system are being Fehlanreize, disincentives. So it's a very market liberal thinking. Even the word competitiveness, Wettbewerbsfähigkeit in that neutral term has been very dominant in economic debates in the years 1990 to 2000. Even before, as we see, it's starting in the 80s, and as for disincentives, also something which has started to develop to grow, and then have had a very striking high in the 1990s and 2000s. Both again break in 2007. Just getting forward, we took another word, globalization shock, also interesting. I mean, it's something which appeared in the mid 1990s. That has been the time when in Germany there was Standortdebatte on competitiveness, and it has had its high time. It's breaking a little before 2007, but goes on and very much down since. Standortwettbewerb and how can I get back? So Standortwettbewerb, tax competition, also some buzzwords of this neoliberal times, also breaking in 2007 or around this date, and then going down very steep decline afterwards. Deregulation, privatization, some differences in detail. Privatization has been a big word in Germany in the 1990s, but that's very much linked to the unification or the fall of the war. There has been until 1995, I mean, until the end of the Treuhandanstalt, for evidence, it's been a huge discussion about privatization in Germany, which was very much due to that situation, but also reflecting a broader trend. So we see that this word still has a certain importance during the whole time, and then again breaks after the financial crisis. Privatization is not as clear, but it's at another level. You see that there's a rise of the word privatization since the early 1980s, and then it starts to go down a little earlier, but it seems again that after 2007, at least, there's no up anymore. Labor market flexibility, also a buzzword, Flexibilität des Arbeitsmarktes, where we see that the blue line breaks in 2007, 2008. Tarifkartell was one other word that we found that has been a very important word, which reflects, I mean, we need words which are only used in one sense. You know, you shouldn't want to avoid words that could be used in both senses, so that maybe a high of a word is just reflecting a negative use of that word. Tarifkartell is something which is always used by market liberals to describe that's bad. I mean, cartel is bad, and so that's a very clear sense of it. You see that there is it's going up in the 80s a little bit, then it goes up very strongly in the 1990s, 2000s. It stopped before 2007. Not really sure why. Maybe it has been at the core again of the Agenda 2010 debate. So it goes on before. But again, it's not coming back after 2007. We just put, in the end, we thought, well, let's put very simple words like markets, like market, like competition, which also seem to give us the same profile after 2007. And government intervention, again, a word that, you know, people who like government intervention wouldn't call it government intervention. It's staatliche Eingriffe is always used by people who are more market liberal, because it's more in a negative way, used in a negative way. And again, see a break after 2007. We're nearly through. It's interesting, even shares, Aktien. We see a profile like this, where there's an upswing during the 1990s, all very often starting in the 80s and 90s and 2000, and again a break in 2007, after 2007, and in other words, kapitalgedeckte Altersvorsorge, which, I mean, were very low levels of, as you see, the percentage rates are very low, but anyway, the profile again seems striking. Finanzmarkteffizienz is very volatile, like financial markets are, maybe, but also there we see that there's a high time before the crisis, and maybe also due to the fact that in the crisis, the term has been used in both ways, so that may be something we need to be careful to not overinterpret. This is all, as we said, it's very preliminary. We just used a very simple method inspired by Bob Schiller, who's done the same exercise for other purposes using n-grams. So it's we are very excited and very, yeah, hopefully getting more input on that. But we need to say a lot of things about it. It's just the books. We probably would need to explore very much more on other tools, social media, whatever, to confirm this. Maybe that's, but it seems so striking and so clear that there's been something happening in 2007-8 with all these words, at least with the methodology that we use, that it seems as if there's a link. And that's striking. I think we had the discussion this morning on populism and the role of the financial crisis, and we all had in mind that it seems as if the financial crisis has had an impact on and broken or contributed to some ending of this old paradigm. But I wouldn't have expected this. I mean, maybe we're wrong in some way, but seeing that this has had an impact on this narratives, which reflect much more, has not been apparent at that time. And we just had one thinking, yes, it could have been that during the financial crisis and the high time, maybe even the Euro crisis, it may be, as we use and we measure relative terms, it may be that just in that time, there have been other words coming up, you know, and then the relative terms go down. But the striking thing is that it doesn't come back. So the number or the percentage rates of the use of these words goes down and doesn't come back. It's over. So maybe that's just a puzzle, a piece of a puzzle of understanding what paradigms is and where we are, but it may be a very important piece. So that reflects that we are already very advanced in, you know, the search of a new paradigm, or at least the end of the old paradigm. So that's been our work on this. We're very excited, very happy to hear your thoughts on that, if there's any immediately. And would very much like to collect any suggestion for the further work. As I said, it's just first step, but a very striking one. So is there any comments? Don't see any. Okay. Let's see that someone written. As we don't have so much time left, we will just collect any further thoughts that you can share. Thanks, Anne, for this work. You have very much driven this technical exploration. So thanks for that. And we can go, I mean, we have a little break again, or that's a little break until 11:30 to start the next session. So if there's any comment on the presentation we had, please send us whatever way we have prepared, and we can reconvene in 15 minutes. So thanks.